Hi guys, so something a little bit different today. With Halloween Ends just over a week away, I thought I would do a video where I make 10 predictions as to what's going to happen during this movie. Now let me say, I've only seen 2 trailers, I think, and I've only seen them once. I haven't studied all the available footage of this film, pausing on every single shot and making notes, and I haven't gone into it in that depth at all. I didn't even want to watch the trailers. I just kind of watched what trailers I did because of some urge to. But once I'd seen them once, I didn't really want to watch them again. So my studying of this film coming into it has been fairly minimal, I've got to say. I will also say, if you don't know me that well, if you've not watched much of my channel up to this point, I am a big fan of this series. I'm not here to knock it down. I really want this film to succeed. I'm really looking forward to it. I've got all the other films on my shelf. I'm a huge Halloween fan. It is my favourite horror franchise. And I say that because a lot of my 10 predictions are quite cliche. They're actually things that I wouldn't mind not seeing in this movie. So, if I end up scoring 0 out of 10... when the film comes out, I'm quite happy, or I would be quite happy for that to happen. But anyway, enough waffle, let's get into it. We've got 10 to get through. So prediction number 1. Laurie and Michael will have a final fight, and it will be just way too long. Laurie will, even though she's 60 odd years old, she will suddenly be the strongest person in Haddonfield. Suddenly Michael will look really inept and silly because he's swishing at thin air. He's no longer the perfect Terminator that he's been in the film up to that point. Earlier on, he's taken down some guys who are 3 times the size of Laurie. Some really strong redneck types who look like they've arm wrestled with Sylvester Stallone in the past. But when it gets to this 60-year-old woman, suddenly it's quite an even fight, and you're not quite sure who's going to win. I think that really could happen, being the last film in the franchise. I hope it doesn't. If there is a final confrontation between Laurie and Michael, I hope they just, if it gets physical, I hope they just resolve it quickly, not just make it some ridiculously long, elaborate thing where Michael is suddenly really inept. Please just don't do that. But I do predict that it happens. Right, number 2. Okay, so I've seen this a lot in horror films. The killer will be killed. And as far as we know, with this being called Halloween Ends, Myers is going to meet his demise in this, we assume. But even if they do that, I've just got a funny feeling that they're going to put this one last little thing in there where you'll see one eye open, or you'll see Myers' finger twitch, or his toenail will twitch, or something like that, either before the end credits or after it. Doesn't matter. They'll just put it in there. I don't like seeing it in there. It's something that I've seen that many times. It makes no impact on me anymore. It's just don't bother with that shit, Maybe we will get a 4th film in this series at some point. Maybe it won't be Halloween Ends, but I don't know. I'm just fearful that they will have that little eye-open moment. Right, number 3. So I predict that not far from the end, Laurie will do some really cheesy little speech to someone where she says things like, "Only I can finish this off. It was always about me and him. Only I can take him down, and it was destiny. It was always going to come to this." She'll be making out like it was always going to be between her and Michael. It'll just be really corny. I've got an image in my head of her maybe being with a policeman character, and she gets him at gunpoint, handcuffs him to his car, and he's like, "No, Laurie, don't be stupid, come back." A little bit like Loomis in Halloween 2 when he turns the gun on some policeman just so he can get to the asylum where the action's happening. I can see Laurie doing something like that in this film, and she'll come out with some cheesy bullshit as to why it's her that's got to face down Michael, and she's got to do it alone. It's just something she's got to do. So there's going to be dialogue in the film that's like that, basically. Right, number 4. This is a bit of a random one. I wouldn't actually mind seeing this. So I'm sure I heard in interviews for this film a year or so back that there is going to be COVID in this world. By the time we get to the 3rd film in this, COVID will have happened in Haddonfield. I'm sure I read that somewhere. I heard it in an interview. So I predict that there will be some humorous references to that. in relation to Halloween masks. Like, somebody will think that somebody's using a COVID mask when actually it's a Halloween mask, or vice versa. Or at its most extreme, like, somebody will say to Myers, somebody who's anti-lockdown will say to Myers, "What are you doing with that stupid COVID mask on?" But it's actually Myers' normal mask or something like that. That some kind of COVID thing in there that's a little bit reminiscent of when Busta Rhymes comes up to Myers that time and they're having that little one-sided conversation, if you like. Right, number 5. This is a very simple and straightforward one. Lindsay Wallace will die. I've got no basis that I'm making that prediction on. I just think she will die in this film, and way before the end as well. I just think she's going to be the big name who goes quite early. Number 6. So there will be at least one new character in this film, probably a young person, who is like some really obnoxious punk who he's got a beer can in his hand and he does not believe for 1 minute that all these murders in the area have been caused by Michael Myers, even though the town has a massive history of death by Michael Myers. He's just going to be an obnoxious little shitbag who just does not believe that there is a serial killer problem in this town, and yeah, he's going to get killed, obviously. So keep an eye out for that character. I just think there's going to be someone like that. Okay. So number 7, I've got a little suspicion that they might repeat what you see at the end of Halloween 1. So at the end of Halloween 1, when Myers falls out the window, the last shot in the movie, which is absolute genius, the camera pans around all these random parts of Haddonfield, like it shows you the living room and the stairs and here, there and everywhere. You know, various places Myers could be. It's one of the best endings to a movie I've ever seen, just brilliantly artistic. I wonder whether they might be tempted to do that again. With this being the final film, potentially, for now, with it being the big climax to a long-running timeline, I wonder whether they might steal it off Carpenter, with his blessing, presumably, because he has been sort of involved in the production. I wonder whether they might try that again and just reuse it just this once, just trying to be clever. So I predict they might just do that. Then the credits, then the eye open. Right, number 8. This is a bit of a random one. I predict there will be 2 people, a young couple, boy and a girl, about to get down and dirty in a car, maybe, or in the park somewhere, I don't know. And just when they're about to start taking each other's clothes off, one of them starts talking about Michael Myers, like, "Oh, didn't you know this is that spot where he killed those 2 people over on those swings like a few years ago?" And then the other one will be like, "You're talking about that shit now?" This could be the guy or the girl who interrupts this to talk about Michael Myers. I've seen this done in horror films before. You know, they'll be getting it on with each other, and then for some reason they'll start thinking about some serial killer from a past film. But who knows? Maybe it'll happen here. In my head, this is happening in a park or a car or something, but they'll just be getting down and dirty, and then, yeah, one of them will start talking about Myers and the things that happened in the past, and it will just ruin the mood. And then another couple of minutes after that, one or both of them, probably both of them, will get skewered. Right, so we are up to number 9. In this one, I predict that when the Laurie-Michael battle ends, they will die together and their heads will be quite close. A little bit like Myers and Loomis at the end of number 5. A little bit like, didn't Terminator Dark Fate finish that way? Didn't Linda Hamilton fall down and lie next to the Terminator? I don't want to see this happen in the film. I think that it might. I'm predicting it will. That's my number 9. Right, finally, I was struggling a little bit for number 10, I've got to admit, but I did want to round it up. So for number 10, I'm going to predict that somebody will be walking past the Myers house, look at it like it's the most scariest place in the world. They'll be looking at it. This will be in the daytime. They'll be looking at it like, you know, just trying to think to themselves, "Oh, I don't want to go anywhere near there." And then somebody will bump into them, and it'll be like a jump scare, and they'll be like, "Oh!" And then their mate will be like, "Oh, a bit jumpy today, aren't we?" and this is going to take place right outside the Myers house. So this is probably the least likely one to happen, but I'm just throwing it in there just so I can have 10. But it'd be funny if it does actually happen. Right. So that is my 10 predictions for Halloween Ends, and I am looking forward to seeing how many I get right. Do let me know your predictions in the comments if you like. And once I've seen the movie, I will come back to this video and write in the comments below myself how many I got right or how many I think I got right. Okay, until next time, cheerio.